That's my grandma, Atstaniki. It means she kills you close, not from far away. She comes up in your face before she kills you. It's because women were named after warriors, and my sister Lori Newbreast carries that name. If you ever meet her, you'll know why. Lori, but I'm the baby in the middle. And that was, she was so proud. She had 3 new babies in the springtime. So I just have to mention her. But what I wanted to share with you is this picture that you see here, and a lot of you, I know we're looking at how do we heal. The answer is in the water. It's in the water. And this is Emoto. This is a picture of some of his research. And as far as quantum physics and the measurable entities in our world, they're being tipsy-turvy with all of this research now. This is crystals taken pictures of a water that was prayed over or given positive or negative messages. It could be river water, lake water, tap water. And the message given to the top photo is happiness. Same water. The bottom photo is unhappiness. So all of our healing of self-talk or what we tell ourselves, it's just like this smudge right here. Whenever you're in ceremony, you ever notice how before you come in, you have to put your foot over your whole body because you're 75% water? It's just so really thinking. So I challenge you to think about this with historical trauma. I was asked to come to New Zealand several times, and on my first visit, one of the women who brought me over, she talked about Pania, the water spirit, and she said the indigenous people need to share spirit with each other. And so one of the things that we've been doing is we'd take a bottle of the water around New Zealand and bring it over and put it in the holy water over here, and then take the holy water here and put it in the water in New Zealand, because the water will heal us. And so I want you to think about, in water itself, and even in those generations, it wasn't the transitional generation is the first generation drinking water out of a bottle. And there are still places on our earth. I live at home in the mountains. I'm fortunate to live on my reservation, and there's still clean water. I can drink it, from the streams, or from the... But to think about what water plays, the Madewans, they actually, when someone's in crises, they'll boil sage, and you can have your own sweat. You can boil sage, and you can bathe and then go out onto the earth and pour it over you, and all of the sickness goes into the ground, and you're healed. And with the medicines, you can have instant healing. So it isn't like we have to suffer and suffer and suffer and have all of these physical ailments as well as emotional or spiritual. Does anyone know who this is? The Dalai Lama with a cedar hat on. The Native Wellness Institute, we were privileged to organize his last visit to Seattle. Now, what does the Dalai Lama say? And they asked him in a gymnasium setting, please, Your Holiness, what is the answer? And what is the answer to being compassionate, to having compassion? And he says, water and sleep. Or something real simple. How many of us get enough sleep? I know, sleep. And then, okay, but what about, what I liked about our speakers before, what about dreams? The analysis of our dreams and the importance of our dreams. And in the tribal culture, dreams, I grew up, the first thing we talked about in the morning was, what did you dream? And everybody shared their dream, and they weren't afraid to share what their dream was. More pictures. The one on top, the message, well done. The message on the bottom, you're no good. Same water. We've seen enough of these pictures. I want to, for a moment, have you to think about the physical ailments attached to the feelings and the healing around historical trauma. And this is nothing new. This is I'm learning acupuncture from Avis Archibald, and Avis is so cool. And this is my focus right now, and it is so true. When you meet the family or the person who lives in fear, it attacks their kidneys. You know, and I think of a friend who came to visit me, and while she was visiting me, she got a phone call. Her father had died. And in driving her to the airport, we had to get her there quick to get on the next plane. We had to pull over 5 times, and she had to run out in the bush and pee. There was just so much fear and so much urine, it had kicked into overdrive. Sadness and grief attacks the lungs. Have you ever noticed, you know, I lost a good friend last year, Sharon Donaldson, up from the Oroville area, and I grieved about a month after she died because I wasn't able to go to her funeral. And I had almost went to bronchitis. I had sinus infections. You're crying out loud. I was crying, but I was just grieving. It was attacking my lungs. The pain and loss of the heart. You know, the high blood pressure, the levels of cortisone up and down. I mean, all of these different physical ailments. Anger. And anger, you know, when someone says, you know, I just got my gallbladder out, I'm 27, or I'm 31, oh God, I'm going to have another gallstone attack. I just look at that person, and you can almost say anger equals what's going on with the gallbladder. But I want to concentrate on that last column there. Did you notice that love is almost in everyone? Love, joy, happiness. And so think about this. Love is not a feeling, it's an ability. So what our role is bringing that ability to every Indian person and every human being, the ability to love. And the forgiveness. You know, I came from a white bison gathering in May. Was that May? No, it was April. 250 people, and it was around forgiveness. And there was like a lot of Canadians and a lot of Indians from the States. They came prepared to do forgiveness work. Within the first hour that we were there, people were sobbing. We had, people just emoting out of the audience, just wanting to go through forgiveness and let that stuff go. And, and I think about that, because how many, I was sitting there, I mean, how many of you still kind of rank on white people, eh? Yeah, some raise, yeah, it's a couple honest people. We got to start working on the forgiveness around that. Yeah, I know, Joyce. Yeah, she's saying, no, I'm going to hold on to that. But also, okay, on my reservation, and I live back home. I've been home going on my 15th year, and I live on the res. It's lateral oppression. The other handout that you have is something that we designed around. The lateral oppression is alive and well on my res. But here, if you go into there's one grocery store, the IGA store. And you ever go in the grocery store and you see someone and they pretend they don't see you? Walk up to them, shake their hand, and say, it's good to see you. How are you doing? I haven't seen you lately. All evaporates. It's just, it's that simple. Or think about that list of, all your exes in Gallup or your exes wherever. Pray 15 days in a row for them. Wake up, light a smudge for them. I just can't. I wanted to just say something, about Gona. There's Harold Belmont, our good friend Terry Tafoya. Keep him in your prayers. There's several Cecilia Fire Thunder. Gona was all of these people designed it. It's a healing movement, and a lot of the Nanakoa founders designed it. And no one really owns it. And now they're trying to make it evidence-based, somehow. But it's been going for 16 years, and it's because of the prayers and because of the medicine. You know, and I just came from Rosebud Reservation. I was just at Wind River Reservation. I was just at Rocky Boy Reservation. I was just at Crow, and I was just at the Blackfeet Nation in the past couple of months conducting GONAs. And it all had to do with suicide. And on one of those reservations, there were 7 young people who had a suicide pact. 3 committed suicide, and the 4 chickened out at the last moment. So that's where we're at. You know, it's like, I really love that we have teammates that are researchers, but I think, I'm one of the soldiers, or the warriorettes, because I have big ovaries. I got to do the work, but I'll give you the numbers. I'll help you give the numbers. Yeah, who's got big ovaries in the room? Exactly. But that means, I want to get Maria to publish. I want to get my sister here to publish. I want us to work as a team, because we got to get the numbers so that it's the tools of today. It's the tools of today. Now, I found this picture. I just want to talk a little bit of story here. The longest walk in 1978. In 1980, there was a run, a 500-mile run from DQ University, Los Angeles to DQ. And this was 1984 when the runners, we were down to a team of 14, and there was only 7 of us running, and we didn't have much food money. And Cesar Chavez told us, come to La Paz, come to my place. And he was such a humble person. He fed us, he gave us food, and one of the men took off his beaded belt buckle, and he gave it to him, and he cried. He was so humbled and so grateful, and that's the healing, and he fed us. And we went on, we had so many blisters, we'd patch up our blisters, we'd get in the van. The longest walk is going on right now, and it arrives in Washington, D.C. July 12th, and they've had a rough time, so pray for them. We all know the story of the white buffalo calf. Born August 20th, 1990, we need to listen to the prophecies. What are your prophecies? The prophecy I heard when I was 17 years old by Philip Deere, Oren Lyons, Thomas Banyaka, was that there would be 4 challenges for the Native people. And I know you guys have heard this before. The first challenge was a black book. The second challenge would be a liquid, alcohol. The third challenge would be a song or a culture from the outside. And the fourth challenge will be a card or a deck of cards. And some spiritual leaders say it's the gaming. So everything has been predicted, and just all we have to do to heal is to go back to the original teachings of the medicine, the water, the ceremonies, the songs, the dance, and the kindness to each other. I wanted to, I know this is my daughter Amanda and one of our little curly and bear dogs. But I wanted to talk story about Vine Deloria. When Vine was on his last days, that when he was dying, he finished his book, and 3 days later he laid down and died. And the book that he finished is The World That We Used to Live In, Remember the Power of the Medicine Men. And what Vine had done in the 40 years of his career is document when people had fasted and had visions and had went through their spiritual awakening. And all he did was put it in chronological order to show that the ancestors and the spirits are still there. So, this is kind of a summary. I wish Vine was, he's probably standing. Hi, Vine. Look, that book, if you haven't read it, please read it. It just gives you goosebumps. But in that book, these are the things that helped people. Stones, sacred stones. How many of you love rocks? I just love rocks. You notice kids love rocks? Oh, Natu Sokotuks, holy rocks. sacred stones, visions, our dreams, our animals, our land. It's like the star people. I always wondered, my mother always prayed to the star people that looked over us. All of these are the kinds of things, and and we'll try to get evidence based on it, eh? How did the star help the stone to help the Indian? Measure that. We can do it, right, Maria? She's at Cornell, she'll help us. But think about this, and some of our elders, this was a Muckleshoot elder, that would always say, Bernice just always said, plant, as long as you can drop to the ground and feel the dirt, everything is okay. She's still alive. Now I wanted to, how many of you have seen any of Edward Curtis's photos? Edward Curtis, McClintock, a lot of the photographers that went around and took pictures of, you ever look at those ancestor pictures? Don't they look like they're staring at you? This is the actual picture, and then this is the painting. It's still there. This is Mountain Chief. He's a Blackfeet. This is my great-great-grandma. I didn't know there was a Curtis photo of her, two-bear woman. He posed her. He put a buffalo robe on her, but I just want to mention, that she had many husbands. She was a woman with many husbands, and there were men with many wives, and it was never a sin till the Catholic Church came. It was, and one of the things is the baby that she had that was my great-grandfather, she had went on to another relationship, so she left it with her sister who still had milk, because her baby had died, so she nursed, and that, so we never knew there was a picture of her. Our ancestors are there. Now this 4th generation in this solution, I want to, so what are some of the solutions, and I'll kind of, I think you get it, but I'm going to speed up just some of the ideas, because I really believe with historical trauma that we have to incorporate all 4 generations. So you traditionalists, again, we only had one, right? Okay, but you guys know they had no TV, they stayed married till death do you part. They knew Korean War, they knew World War I, they expected miracles every day. They prayed every day. They had normal rites of passage. They had subsistence living. They grew, they hunted. On my reservation, we looked at, the framework of poverty, another thing to be looked at, and it was mentioned here, is in 1960, the average income on my reservation was $912. And it wasn't, it didn't, until 1978, there was still only 9.2% of our population made over $10,000. They're still on, I still have relatives who don't have running water where I live. So in the traditionalists, it's about healing from historical trauma, is you have to look at their worldview and what they went through, and that's how they will heal.
Well, what's the 3 W's?
The 3 world wars. Yeah. World War II. Oh, 3 W's, my daughter put that one. White women, white bread, and white sugar. 3 white evils. They messed with the traditionalists. Thank you, sister, for asking. She got to snuck that in. Well, and, it was it's okay. Thank you. Go, Amanda. And one of, okay, this is historical trauma healing. This whole carbohydrate thing. On our tribe, we were protein meat eaters, root eaters, berry eaters. And one of the things we found in our healing, we started going back, and we found that the first diabetic was diagnosed in 1936. And before 1936, there was no diabetics on our reservation. So us healing from the trauma, we're just going back to eating like our ancestors. So I need to mention that because it's rough. You're not supposed to have more than 50 carbohydrates at a meal. So that's 2 bites of 1 cookie. No. Biculturalists. So think about this. Now, biculturalists, how many of you still have an 8-track? I remember stretch pants. They're coming back. It's also, the identity crisis. Do you remember? I remember this was a memory that was so painful I blanked out when we first moved off the reservation. And then I remembered it after I'd been sober for a while. Now the memory, this is an example of that identity crisis. I was in Berkeley and we lived in the ghetto. We always lived in the ghetto. I liked it. And there was this group of African American women, and there was they used to call them Chicanas at the time, visiting, and they were talking about Indians. And they were saying, God, those Indians, they get their first paycheck, and they never show up to work again. They're always drunk. They don't pay their rent on time. And I was like probably 8.5, and I remember as they were saying this, I was shrinking, and I was shrinking, and I was shrinking. And then they realized I was there, and they go, oh, aren't you Indian? And I said, no, I'm Filipino. But here's a little 8.5-year-old girl. I was ashamed, I was shrinking, and so I said I was something else because I just at that moment, I was so ashamed to be Indian. Vietnam, how a lot of our wounded warriors still there. Drunken Indian. So think about this frame of reference, because this is my era, and I'll have to tell you, I just made a couple notes. The healing comes with getting your Indian name, going back to Sundance or to Native American church, getting your pipe, getting a rattle, paying attention to your dreams, and stop abusing tobacco, commercial tobacco. That's, that's just a few for that generation. The transitional generation, the first generation that drank water from a bottle. Yes. This is the first generation to go to treatment. Wannabes. Dinks. Do you guys remember, where's Janet King? Remember when we were at Berkeley and the hippies were moving out? Hey, and the hippies were right. I want to get a t-shirt, the hippies are right. Dinks were double income, no kids. Okay? Cell phones. How many of you in this room, how many years have you had your cell phone? Too many. Is it better for you or is it more peaceful? I really think about that. Where's the boundary on cell phones? So the healing has to happen in that frame of reference. I think I'm kind of getting the high sign over here. And the millennials, they are addicted to meth and OxyContin. Okay, it's a different kind of addiction. They want more electronic time. They don't take a job for retirement. They just get another job. They're in a whole different frame of mind. They're in Iraq. They're a casino Indian. They won't go in an outhouse. And they know how to use the microwave, but they don't know how to cook. They can't make bread. But I just want to say, in the healing around this, it's very, very interesting because there's also, I have some cousins now as well as my own daughter and just wherever. I just worked with 65 kids from the Severn Reservation last week in Missoula, Montana. And those kids, they pick up the language just like that. Those kids, they pick up the songs just like that. And once you teach them respect, they have it. There is that hope, that healing for us. I'm going to let you read your handouts. I think I'm going to end with this. The healing from historical trauma has to do with going back to conducting ourselves as a respectful Indian. This is an elder from the Crow Nation, Joe Medicine Crow. And I was with him a few weeks ago. And Joe put on his war bonnet, and he wasn't stable enough to go out in the grand entry, and he realized that once he got out there. So this is how he came over to the side, and he was really unstable, and he was standing there. And to see him try his best to get out there and to be in grand entry. So all he could do was stabilize himself. But what I got to witness, because I was standing next to him, of course he's a Crow man, they won't never let a woman hold him up, you know. So I was standing just in case. But the grand entry came in, and I could see in that crowd who was still Indian. Because they saw what he was doing, and they were all powwow dancers, and they knew the element of respect. And you don't get out of line in grand entry, but the ones that were still raised Indian got out of line and came over and shook his hand. All we have to do is shake each other's hand. That's all we have to do is shake each other's hand and help our others to come along with this healing, and it will be a done deal. Because I'll tell you right now, I believe the world is relying on the indigenous spirit to save us. And with that, I thank you.